It was a sultry, summer evening, the kind of evening when the air feels heavy and every breath carries the remnants of the day's heat. I had just returned home after a long day and longed only for a cool shower to regain my strength. The house was unusually quiet. My father was working late, as he often did, and I assumed that my stepmother, Claire, was probably out with her friends. Claire was always outgoing, charming, radiant, and full of energy. She was only a few years older than me and had married my father after he and my mother had separated. At first, I wasn't sure how to feel about her being so close to my age, but over time, we got along remarkably well. I tossed my bag on the couch and headed for the bathroom. The cool water running down my body was incredibly soothing, releasing the tension of the previous day. I was deep in thought, closing my eyes under the jets when I heard the faint creak of the bathroom door. My heart jumped. I hadn't locked it. I hadn't expected someone to be back so early. Before I could answer, I heard the cautious sound of footsteps on the tiled floor. I hastily wiped my eyes and looked at the door. To my amazement, Claire was standing there. Her gaze was unwavering, fixed on me, and I felt my pulse quicken. She didn't avert her eyes or apologize for the intrusion. Instead, she stood staring at me, her expression unreadable. "Claire," I managed to mutter, my voice barely above a whisper. I had no idea what was going on. Some part of me expected her to laugh and say it was an accident, but she didn't. There was no humor or embarrassment in her eyes. She stepped closer, and I could feel the tension building between us. "I didn't mean to scare you," she whispered softly, her voice steady, though there was something unrecognizable in her tone. "I just needed to talk to you." I reached for the towel hanging on the rack and quickly wrapped it around my waist. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of the situation. Why was she here? Why hadn't she left? Unspoken words hung in the air, and my heart was pounding frantically in my chest. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. Claire took another step forward, her eyes still fixed on me. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately, about us, and I can't keep pretending." For a moment, my mind boggled. What was she implying? I'd always thought our relationship was simple. She was my father's wife, nothing more. But now, standing here, half hidden and vulnerable, I realized it wasn't as simple as I'd assumed. "I don't understand," I reply, though deep down I knew exactly what she was implying. She smiled slowly, an almost seductive smile, and for the first time, I noticed how truly beautiful she was. I'd always known Claire was attractive, everyone did. She had that effortless beauty that turned heads wherever she went. But now, as I watched her up close, as she looked at me, I saw her in a whole new light. "You are no longer a child," she said in a low, even voice. "I've noticed the way you look at me. Don't think I haven't noticed it. And I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed you too." My throat was dry. I was lost for words, lost in thought. Was this really happening? It seemed surreal, dreamlike, but the pounding of my heart reminded me that it was all too real. "I can't do this," I said in a shaky voice, though part of me wasn't sure if I was trying to convince her or myself. She reached out and touched my arm, her fingers warm against my damp skin. "Why not?" she asked softly. "No one has to know." "It can be our little secret." Her touch made goosebumps run across my skin, and I struggled to think. This was wrong, completely wrong. But the way she was looking at me, the way she was touching me, made it almost impossible to focus on anything else. I stepped back, but the small bathroom gave me no room to escape. Claire, this isn't right. What about my father? Her expression softened slightly, and for a brief moment, I thought she was going to change her mind. But then she shook her head. Things aren't what you think your father and I have in common. He's rarely home, and when he is, we're like strangers. I've been lonely for a long time. Her words hung in the air, filled with weight and significance. I could hear the pain in her voice, the loneliness she hid behind her normally confident face. Part of me sympathized with her, but another part of me knew this wasn't the answer. You don't have to be lonely, I said, trying to reason with her, though my own resolve wavered. There's someone in this world for you, but it's not me. She chuckled softly, and the sound brought a new wave of heat through me. Maybe there is, but I'm here with you right now, and I know you feel it too. She was right. As much as I wanted to deny it, there was something between us. A spark, an attraction I hadn't recognized until that moment. But that didn't make it right. I can't, I repeated, though there was no longer the same conviction in my voice. Claire's hand slid from my arm to my chest, her fingers tracing the contours of my torso, and I inhaled sharply, my body responding despite my internal conflict. We don't need to hurry, she whispered, leaning closer. But I know you want to. I've seen the way you watch me when you're thinking at this moment that I'm not paying attention. Her words hit me like a blow. I'd tried so hard to control my thoughts, to treat her as nothing more than my father's wife, but she'd seen right through me. And now, standing a few centimeters away from her, the temptation was irresistible. I could feel her breath on my skin, her body so close I could feel the heat coming from her. I wanted to push her away, to do the right thing, but every part of me was screaming at me to give in. As soon as she leaned closer, we heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling up to the house. My father was home. Claire's eyes widened, and she quickly stepped back. The moment between us was ruined. You have to leave, she said, her voice suddenly urgent. We'll discuss this later. I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my clothes and hurried out of the bathroom, my heart still pounding, thoughts rushing through my head. As I got dressed, I couldn't stop mulling over what had just happened. What am I going to do? How would I meet my father? And, more importantly, what would happen between me and Claire now? The next few days passed like a blur. I avoided Claire as much as I could, even though it wasn't easy. Every time we were in the same room, the tension was palpable. I could feel her eyes on me, waiting for the moment when we could be alone again. But I knew I had to stay strong for my father's sake and for my own sanity. One evening, when my father was once again late for work, she cornered me in the kitchen. We need to talk, she said, her voice soft but firm. I knew I couldn't dodge this conversation forever, so I nodded, preparing myself for what awaited me. I can't stop thinking about you, she admitted, her eyes stopping on mine. I know it's hard, but I don't care. I want you. Her words hit me like a speeding train. I'd tried so hard to suppress my feelings, to convince myself that what happened in the bathroom was just a passing weakness. But now, Hearing those words from her, I realized I'd been fooling myself. I don't know what to do, I admitted in a barely audible voice. She moved closer, shrinking the space between us. Just be with me, she whispered, her lips only a few inches from mine. No one has to know. And in that instant, I made the decision I knew would change everything. I shortened the distance between us and pressed my lips to hers, giving into the desire that had been simmering beneath the surface of my soul for so long. The kiss was electrifying, charged with all the passion and tension we'd been holding back. It was wrong. I knew it, but in that moment, I didn't care. All that mattered was her, the way she pressed against me, the way she made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in ages. When we finally pulled away from each other, we were both out of breath and our hearts were racing. "What now?" I asked, my voice shaking. She smiled slowly, seductively, and a chill ran down my spine. "Let's see where this takes us," she said softly. So began our secret relationship, filled with stolen moments and whispered promises. It was dangerous, exciting, and completely forbidden, but I couldn't stop. Every time we were alone, the tension between us grew stronger and the desire grew sharper. It was like we were playing with fire, and I knew it was only a matter of time before we were seen together.